Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we delve into the vast expanse of human experience, exploring the intricate tapestry of our collective past. Today, we embark on a journey through one of the most pivotal and devastating events in human history, the Black Death, a pandemic that ravaged the world from 1347 to 1351, leaving an indelible mark on the course of civilization. As we step into this narrative, let us first set our gaze upon the backdrop against which this tragedy unfolded. The early 14th century was a time of great upheaval and transformation. The Mongol Empire, under the leadership of Genghis Khan and his successors, had stretched its vast tentacles across Eurasia, facilitating trade, cultural exchange, and, unfortunately, the spread of diseases along the Silk Road. This era also saw the rise of city-states in Italy, such as Venice, Genoa, and Florence, which would become crucial centers of commerce, art, and learning. In Europe, the feudal system was beginning to show signs of strain, with peasants and nobles alike facing economic hardships and social unrest. The Catholic Church, meanwhile, held significant sway over the spiritual and political landscape, its influence felt from the grand cathedrals of France to the humblest village parishes. It was against this complex backdrop that the seeds of disaster were sown. The story begins far to the east, in the heart of Central Asia, where the Mongols had unwittingly played a role in creating an environment conducive to the spread of disease. The plague, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, is believed to have originated in the Mongolian marmot population and was then transmitted to humans via fleas that lived on rats and other rodents. As trade caravans and armies moved along the Silk Road, they unwittingly carried these infected rodents with them, spreading the disease across vast distances. By the early 1340s, reports of a mysterious and deadly illness began to emerge from the Crimean port city of Kaffa, now Theodosia, a key trading post on the Black Sea. It was here that the plague first made its appearance in Europe, brought by merchant ships arriving from infected areas in Asia. The disease spread rapidly, fueled by the lack of immunity among European populations and the close living quarters of urban centers. Overcrowding, poor sanitation, and malnutrition had weakened the population, making them more susceptible to illness. In the years immediately preceding the pandemic, Europe experienced a series of crop failures and famines, further weakening the population. The 100 Years' War between England and France had also begun, drawing resources away from public health and towards military campaigns. It was into this volatile mix that the plague was introduced, sparking a chain reaction of suffering and transformation that would forever alter the course of human history. The first major outbreak of the plague in Europe occurred in 1347, when a fleet of Genoese ships arrived at the port city of Messina, Sicily. These ships, having sailed from Kaffa, carried not only goods, but also the infected rodents that would unleash the plague upon European shores. The disease spread with terrifying speed, moving from Sicily to the Italian mainland and then outward to the rest of Europe, carried by trade routes, pilgrims, and armies. As the plague began its relentless march across the continent, it encountered a population that was not only biologically vulnerable, but also psychologically unprepared for the horrors that were about to unfold. The social, economic, and cultural structures of medieval society were about to be tested as never before, leading to reactions that ranged from desperate prayers for divine intervention to violent outbursts against perceived scapegoats. The year 1348 marked a turning point in the history of the plague as it spread throughout Europe with unprecedented ferocity. Cities, once bustling centers of commerce and culture, became scenes of unimaginable horror, with corpses littering the streets and the sick begging for mercy. The very fabric of society began to unravel as traditional hierarchies were turned upside down by the indiscriminate nature of the disease. It was in this maelstrom of death and despair that the first glimmers of a new era began to emerge. As the plague raged on, it exposed deep-seated flaws in the feudal system, accelerated social change, and laid the groundwork for the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. The Black Death, in all its terrifying majesty, was not just a pandemic, but a catalyst for transformation, forcing humanity to confront its own mortality and the impermanence of all things. As the plague raged on, it exposed deep-seated flaws in the feudal system, accelerated social change, and laid the groundwork for the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. The year 1349 proved to be a pivotal moment in this transformation, as the disease reached its peak intensity in many parts of Europe. In England, the plague arrived in the summer of 1348, spreading rapidly from the ports of Melcombe Regis in Dorset and Bristol, before moving inland to devastate towns and villages. The city of London, with its densely packed population and poor sanitation, was particularly hard hit, with estimates suggesting that nearly half of its inhabitants perished. In the midst of this unimaginable suffering, social norms began to break down, and traditional hierarchies were turned upside down. As the plague showed no respect for wealth or status, the nobility and clergy were just as likely to fall victim as the common people. This led to a sense of disillusionment with the established order, as many began to question the authority of the church and the aristocracy. The flagellant movement, which emerged in response to the plague, is a striking example of this phenomenon. Groups of penitents, often dressed in sackcloth and ashes, would march through towns and villages, whipping themselves and calling for repentance. This movement, which spread rapidly across Europe, was characterized by its fervor and its rejection of traditional authority. One of the most significant consequences of the plague was the severe shortage of labor that it created. With nearly half of Europe's population dead, the balance of power between lords and peasants was dramatically altered. Peasants, who had previously been tied to the land, were now able to demand higher wages and better working conditions, leading to a significant shift in the social and economic landscape. The Statute of Laborers, passed in England in 1351, is a testament to the attempts of the nobility to maintain their grip on power, as it sought to freeze wages at pre-plague levels and prevent peasants from taking advantage of their newfound bargaining power. As the plague slowly began to recede, European society was left to pick up the pieces and come to terms with the devastation that had been wrought. The trauma inflicted by the plague would take generations to heal, and its impact would be felt for centuries to come. In the words of the medieval historian Giovanni Boccaccio, the plague was a scourge sent by God to punish humanity for its sins. This sentiment, which reflects the widespread belief that the plague was a divine punishment, also hints at the deeper psychological and emotional scars that the plague would leave on European society. The summer of 1350 saw a series of violent attacks on Jewish communities across Europe, as many blamed them for the outbreak of the plague. These pogroms, which were particularly severe in Germany and France, resulted in the deaths of thousands of Jews and the destruction of entire communities. This wave of anti-Semitic violence was fueled by rumors that Jews had poisoned wells and deliberately spread the disease, and it would have a lasting impact on Jewish-Christian relations in Europe. As the plague slowly receded from Europe, the violent attacks on Jewish communities also began to subside, but not before leaving a lasting scar on Jewish-Christian relations. The trauma inflicted by the plague would take generations to heal, and its impact would be felt for centuries to come. In the years following the plague, European society was left to pick up the pieces and rebuild, with many turning to the church for solace and guidance. However, the church's failure to provide adequate spiritual leadership during the crisis had eroded its authority, leading to a decline in its influence and power. The economic consequences of the plague were also far-reaching, as the severe shortage of labor led to significant changes in the social and economic landscape. The rise of a wage-earning class, the growth of trade and commerce, and the emergence of a new class of landowners all contributed to a fundamental transformation of European society. As the medieval historian Henry Knighton observed, the plague was a great leveler, for it spared no one, regardless of their station or status. This newfound social mobility and economic freedom would have a profound impact on the development of Western civilization. In the decades following the plague, Europe experienced a cultural and artistic flowering as writers, artists, and thinkers sought to make sense of the devastating events that had unfolded. The works of Geoffrey Chaucer, Giovanni Boccaccio, and Petrarch, among others, reflect the trauma and disillusionment of the post-plague era, while also expressing a newfound appreciation for human life and the beauty of the natural world. As the Italian poet Petrarch wrote, "The plague was a reminder that our lives are but a brief candle, and that we must cherish every moment, for we know not what the future may bring." Today, the Black Death is remembered as one of the most significant events in human history, a pandemic that ravaged Europe and left an indelible mark on Western civilization. Its legacy can be seen in the many social, economic, and cultural changes that it brought about, from the rise of a wage-earning class to the emergence of new forms of artistic expression. The Black Death serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of human life and the importance of understanding the past in order to prepare for the challenges of the future. It is a testament to the boundless capacity of human beings to adapt, to innovate, and to thrive even in the face of unimaginable adversity. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.